guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. If you guys follow me over on Instagram, I had asked you guys a couple days ago to pray for us, that our whole family was sick and that I wasn't going to be able to get a video out for Thursday like I usually do. And thank you guys so much, all of you who prayed or, who sent me messages, get well soon messages and prayers. That really meant a lot, and I really appreciate that. But I wanted to kind of explain what has been going on, what our family has been going through the last week or so. So I guess this all started like last weekend. On Saturday, we were spending the day with my parents, and that morning I just got like a really bad headache. My head was pounding, it was killing me. And I get headaches every now and then, but this was like a really bad one. Like I felt like it hurt to turn my head even, like because it was just pounding. And I hadn't slept good the night before, which that's not totally unusual for me. I have a lot of sleep issues. And so some nights I just have nights where I just don't get good sleep. And then that usually will make me have a headache the next day. So I kind of figured that it was just from not sleeping good and not having enough caffeine. But it hurt really bad. It was just like a back of the head pounding. And it had been a long time since I'd had a headache that bad. So that lasted all day. I tried drinking like coffee and a lot of water to try to see if I could get rid of it. I couldn't get rid of it. I finally, we went back to my parents' house because we had been out all day, and took some extra, extra strength Tylenol. And that finally made the headache go away. So I felt okay for then. That night we went home, and that evening after we put the kids to bed, we got word that some friends of ours that we had been in direct contact with, we'd spent a lot of time with them, that someone in their family had tested positive for COVID. And these people, our friends, had spent direct contact with this family member, so they were exposed, which meant that we were exposed. So our friends were going to get tested the next day, and then if theirs came back positive, we would go get tested. So I was kind of having some panic and a freak out moment for sure, because that was the first time. I mean, this pandemic has been going on for a year, and that was the first time that I had been directly exposed to my knowledge. And here we are a year later, and it's still scary when you hear that, when, you think, oh my gosh, do I have it? Could I have it? What's going to happen? What about my kids? Definitely had a panic freak out moment, but, I just tried to go to bed that night, knowing that there was nothing I could do until either I started having symptoms, or until we found out the status of our friends' tests that we, had been in contact with. So I went to bed that night, and it was an awful night. I had chills all night long, so I barely slept at all. I was just so cold. I could not get warm. I didn't have a fever, but I just had chills and I couldn't get warm. I just felt so cold no matter what I tried, how many blankets I tried putting on me. So it was a very restless night. Which the next morning when I woke up, I still had chills, and now I had developed body aches. It hurt to move. Everything hurt to move. It hurt sitting down, it hurt standing up, it hurt walking around, and I had got all this congestion, like right here, like when you get a really bad cold, like my nose was kind of running, but it was also stopped up, and I couldn't breathe through my nose. And so at that point, I knew that those were all symptoms of COVID, and when I, looked back at Saturday when I'd had that bad headache, and I thought that that was just from lack of sleep and lack of caffeine and whatever. That's a headache is actually one of the top symptoms of COVID, like a really bad headache. And so looking back at that, that's when I realized that that was probably my first symptom, was that headache, and I didn't even know it. So Sunday, I felt horrible. My husband, here's the tricky part. So my husband actually had gotten his first shot of the vaccine about, I guess this was about 5 days ago. He had got it the Wednesday before. So now we're at from Wednesday to Sunday. And right after he had got the shot, he had started experiencing some symptoms like congestion and body aches and stuff like that. But they had told him when he got the shot that the vaccine could make you have some symptoms like you had COVID. So he had those symptoms on Wednesday, but we just thought that they were from the vaccine. So it was kind of hard to tell, like, if he was experiencing real COVID symptoms or if he was just experiencing from the vaccine. But I decided that we should both get tested at that point on Sunday afternoon, and I felt horrible. And I just, I told my mom, I was like, I'm pretty positive that I have it. Like, at this point, I would be surprised if my test came back as negative, because I just feel horrible, and it's just too much of a coincidence that I would just, have a cold or allergies, which I've never had in my life, after we had direct contact with someone else that had it. So my husband and I went to go get tested. And like I said, we're a year into this pandemic, and I had never had to get tested before. So this was my first time. And honestly, I was a bit scared. And because, all I've heard is how awful getting tested for COVID is. And, they use a Q-tip this big and jam it all the way up into your brain. And that is pretty much all I have heard about getting tested. So I was a bit nervous because, I don't want to have to go through unnecessary discomfort or an uncomfortable situation if I didn't have to. But thankfully, when I went to go get tested, it was just like a short Q-tip, probably. It was like the size of a regular Q-tip. And she just gently swabbed like on the inside of both nostrils. So really, she only went to like here. She did not go way up. So I was so thankful. It didn't hurt. It wasn't even uncomfortable. It was, totally fine. So that was really quick. I mean, we were in and out of the testing center in 5 minutes, which was nice because, back in last spring and even over the summer and stuff, I mean, people were waiting in lines for hours to get tested. So the whole process was very smooth. And they said that if it was negative, they would send that result in an email. If it was positive, then someone would call you. And they said about 24 hours. So we went home, and, I just felt horrible. But I had to wait until 24 hours went by to get my results. So the next morning, I was trying to stay like up here in our room, and kind of keep myself quarantined because, I didn't know if I had it or not, but I didn't really want to be around the kids if I did or whatever. And at about 10 o'clock, my phone rang and it said, whatever lab. And so obviously seeing that on my phone, the caller ID, I knew, that I had COVID because they said that they would call. So I answered the phone and it was a lab tech. And she said, sorry to give you this bad news, but you and your husband both tested positive for COVID. And honestly, I think my heart might have stopped for a second. That's not anything that anybody wants to hear, that you have this awful virus that has killed thousands and thousands of people. That's a scary thing. And so I asked her about the kids. I said, we have 3 young kids, and obviously they've been exposed because we've been, together. Obviously, we live together, and we didn't know that we had this. what should I do? And she said, just assume that the kids are positive also. So, I might have cried a little bit. I don't handle like getting news like that very well, but I pulled myself together. And then I had to tell my parents because we were with my parents all day Saturday, and so told them that they needed to also go get tested, and just pray that they didn't have it. And so then the Board of Health called me, and they have to do like all their contact tracing and information gathering that they do, for the state. The state's trying to keep track of, who got COVID, how did they get it, and how it affects, I guess, different, races and ethnicities and ages and genders. Like they're trying to keep track of all that information. So had to answer a lot of questions for that. And then she said that, we had to quarantine for 10 days. And then here's the confusing part. So my husband and I, since we had a positive test, had to quarantine for 10 days from the start of our symptoms. So they counted that as Saturday, since I had that awful headache on Saturday. And then for my husband, I had told her about how he had gotten the vaccine and had some symptoms, but didn't know exactly, what was up with that. And so she said that she would just put us on the same day, so she counted him as Saturday also. So for the kids, she said that if they didn't show any symptoms, then they would have to have an extra 10 days of quarantine. So it would be like 20 days for them because, you can be exposed and still get it like anywhere in a 2-week time period. So like they could wait until we were on like our last day of quarantine and then they could get it. So she said that she sees that happen a lot with families where there's a lot of members of the family where they will all kind of get it like as a domino effect, and then that keeps backing up the quarantine date. So she said it can get really long. And so just thinking about my kids being stuck in our small little house for 20 days, that right there was enough to give me like a little panic attack. Like honestly, at that point, I think I was a little bit more afraid of the quarantine than honestly of having COVID, because if you're a parent and you have small kids, trying to keep them busy, at home for that long and not being able to, we have a small yard that they can play in, but still it gets old, But what can you do? That's just what you have to do. And so I tried to go into it with the mindset of, okay, this is what we have to do. We're going to do this, and we're going to try to make it fun. We're going to try to make memories, and just pray that nobody gets like seriously sick. And so at this point, like I was feeling pretty, just like I had a bad cold, but honestly, it wasn't like unbearable. The night that I had like the chills and the body aches, that first day, that day was my roughest day. Like I felt pretty bad that day. But like the day after that, and then each following day, like I felt a little bit better each day. So those were kind of my symptoms. I had the headache that lasted for one day. I had the chills at night that lasted for one night. That next day I had like body aches. Just felt like I got run over by a truck. That lasted for a day. And then each day after that, like I started to feel a little bit better. I had a little bit of a cough sometimes, and I'm still dealing with some of the congestion stuff, if you can hear it in my voice. But those were pretty much the symptoms that we dealt with. None of us had fevers at all. And I am so thankful for that, because the fevers are what is really scary. And that can send a lot of people to, the hospital. Fevers and breathing problems, which none of us ever had breathing problems. So I'm just, sorry. I'm just so thankful for that. The kids, so they started coughing. I think Ellie started coughing Monday night, and then Emmy and Lawson kind of started coughing that next morning. But it wasn't like anything super bad. It was just, sometimes they would randomly cough, or if they were like running around playing and got kind of winded, then they would cough. And it sounded like a croupy kind of cough. but nothing like concerning, nothing that made them, have any breathing issues or anything like that. So the Board of Health nurse, she would call like every other day to check in on us, make sure that nobody had gotten any worse, just to check on us, I guess. And so I had told her that the kids had all started coughing. And so she said that because of that, cough is a major symptom of COVID, that she would count them as a confirmed positive. And then because of that they had shown symptoms, then that actually shortened their quarantine, because now, we know that the kids have it. And so they say, I guess, that at the end of 10 days, it will be, out of your system. That's why they make you quarantine for 10 days, to get it out of your system. So she said that because of that, we could have the kids be done with quarantine on day 10 instead of having to wait 20 days. So, oh my gosh, when I got that news, I was just so happy that I wasn't going to have to keep them cooped up in here for 20 days. So that was, a relief that it worked out that way. So currently right now we are still in quarantine. This video is going up on Monday, and mine and Logan's last day of quarantine is Tuesday, so tomorrow. But like, you have to count that whole day. So we wouldn't, I guess, be out of quarantine until Wednesday. And then the kids, their last full day of quarantine is the 1st, which I think that's Thursday. So we're almost done. And like I said, each day we're feeling a bit better. You can still tell, like I said, I have some congestion. And like sometimes I just get a tickle in the back of my throat. So it's like, it's not like I'm coughing like all the time. And honestly, my throat doesn't even hurt. Like, none of us ever got like sore throats or anything like that. But it just gets kind of dry. And of course it did right then when I was talking about it. And you just get like a little tickle in the back of your throat. But hopefully that should clear up soon. My husband did lose his smell and his taste just for like a day, and then it came back. So that was kind of weird. And then I got this like disgusting, like metallic metal taste in my mouth, and it was so strong, and it was awful. And I tried like drinking a bunch of different flavored drinks to get rid of it. I tried eating a bunch of different flavored foods to get rid of it, and it just made everything that I ate or drank taste like that nasty taste, and oh, it was awful. And so that lasted for a day and a half. Like, the second day, it was still there, but it was less strong. And then I finally, the next day, got rid of that, because that was honestly probably the worst symptom, because it just made everything, it was just like a permanent nasty taste in your mouth. It was awful. So that was our symptoms. Honestly, we had a very mild case of COVID compared to a lot of people. And I'm just so thankful to God for that, because I don't deal well with stress, and especially not when like my kids are, sick or whatever. And so I'm just so glad that we had a very mild case, no real issues. I don't know what I would have done if one of my kids had to go to the hospital or something like that. That would have just wrecked me. And so, you do see all these news stories of, kids sick in the hospital with it, adults sick in the hospital with it. So many people have died, And so I don't think that COVID is something to joke about. And we've taken COVID very seriously from the beginning of this pandemic. I mean, we live in a state where it's, I guess you could say, taken very seriously. Like, we have to wear masks everywhere here in our state. And a lot of things have been closed, and a lot of things are still closed. But like, we have worn our mask everywhere. We wear it everywhere. We barely go anywhere. The kids are homeschooled, so it's not even like they're, around a bunch of people all day. I just feel like we've taken every precaution that we could, and yet we still got it. So, it is something to take seriously, but at the same time, I don't think that it's healthy for you, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It's just not healthy to live in fear of COVID. And, I know that we've been in this now for a year, and people have to move on with their lives at some point. And a lot of people have, gone back to work and gone back to eating out and, doing more, I guess, social things. But I know that a lot of people are still at home. Like I currently know people in my life that have not left their house for anything that's, not essential at all. And I just don't know how healthy that can be either, especially on your mental health, to isolate yourself for that long. But what can you do? I mean, COVID is scary and people are still getting it. We got it, even though we took all the precautions. So, I just pray that COVID will eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later, be gone. It's already caused so much destruction, so much pain, so many lives have been lost, and I just have to stay hopeful, stay positive, and hopefully, with these vaccines, hopefully things can get more, I guess, back to normal, and then hopefully at some point, COVID will be a thing of the past. That's my prayer. That's my hope. But I just wanted to update you guys on, what was going on with us, and say thank you for all of your prayers for those of you who responded to my Instagram post. And the last thing I want to share is I wanted to share with you 3 vitamin supplements that we have been taking the night that we found out that we had been exposed, and, we would have to get tested. I had messaged my aunt. She's a nurse, and she's kind of like the family, everybody goes to her in the family with their medical questions or whatever. And her and her husband had actually gotten COVID back in December, so they had been through this. And she had told me some vitamins that really helped them get over it quickly, recover quickly, and, ease the symptoms and stuff. And she, like I said, is a nurse, and she said that all the other nurses and doctors that she works with, they have started taking these daily, and it can also build up your immune system and actually help you prevent getting COVID. So if that's something that you are wanting to look into or whatever, I wanted to share these vitamins with you, and, add these to your daily regimen, and they'll help your immunity system and hopefully help you from getting COVID, because it's not fun. You don't want it. So the first one is zinc, and my store didn't have, they were out of the plain zinc by itself. So this one is calcium, magnesium, and zinc. But yeah, zinc and vitamin D and vitamin C. So those things together should help. And then I have been washing all of our laundry with the Lysol laundry sanitizer that I used and reviewed in my recent laundry video. And I think that that's really, helped. Just at least in my mind, it helps me to know that, the germs are washing away. And then, I've just been Lysoling everything else. I mean, we all have it, but, especially after our quarantine is over, definitely feel like I need to deep clean and sanitize our house. God has been good to us. Like I said, I'm so thankful that we had a very mild case and God got us through this. So definitely I'm so thankful for my faith and my relationship with God to get us through, hard times like this. So thank you guys so much for praying. Thank you for your support. We love you guys so much. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Don't wanna be shy. I will let my guard down. Don't wanna be shy.